There's no doubt light is suddenly of freedom. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm just getting situated, making sure I've got some chocolate on hand and a drink. And we'll get jumping in. How is everybody today? I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm going to just situate a couple more lights here, make sure we've got some good lighting for today. Hey, Jan. Hey, Geraldine. How's it going, you guys? It's good to see you. All right, I'm just trying to get some lighting to sit properly here, so bear with me. Gonna fight me today, I think. That's all right. All right. So I was working on this mug before, so it's just still sitting here. It's almost done. Just have the swoops to add on the bottom and then some detail on the handle and it's done, but I'm going to move that out of the way because we've got some stones to paint. How is everybody? Hello, Melinda. Hello, Nancy. Hi, Sharon. How's everybody doing? Is everybody ready? Thanks, Jan. My goal yesterday was to paint 5 mugs so that I could have 5 things to put into my shop today. And yeah, that didn't happen. I got one. I got one done, but that's okay. Thanks, Geraldine. Good morning, Angela. It's good to see you, Sonia. How are you? Do you want hunky-dory? Hope you're doing well. What? I am doing well. I'm breathing a little easier, with the exception that I'm sneezing like crazy today, so I apologize. The allergies are coming out. I will do my best to warn you when one is coming and to turn away so I don't blast you with the microphone. And we'll get going. I was gonna say, Jan, do I want hunky-dory? I don't know what it means, but I feel like I want it. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys are ready to paint. Hello, Rex. You're doing hunky-dory. Wonderful. I'm glad you're doing hunky-dory. That's good to hear. Yes, it is a Blessed Pooh Day, Sharon, for sure. For those of you who don't know the Blessed Pooh story, one of our wonderful little family members has a bit of a fight with the autocorrect feature. So one time I sneezed and she tried to say bless you in the chat and it came out Blessed Pooh. So that is now our greeting. Ready to paint as soon as I get home from back surgery. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Are you doing okay? I'm glad to see you guys. So what I wanted to start with today, I've got 4 different surfaces. This is a 2-parter, right? So this is working on some smaller things. Okay, so what I have is I have one of my molded stones that I made. I think dotting on stones is a good thing for us to cover because you're dealing with a curved surface and how the paint can travel a little bit differently, all of that sort of stuff. So you're hurting, but better. Oh, I wish you a speedy recovery, my dear. Sending you so much love. Sending you so much love. So I have a molded stone that I made. This is a 3-inch stone. I make these with gypsum powder. One of these days we will do a live where I go through all of the mixing and everything that I do for these and how I do the molds. Maybe I'll even just film a separate kind of fuller tutorial that we'll put out there on how I make my stones, the molds I get, where I get them from, and then it takes about an hour and a half for them to cure before they can come out of the mold. So then I'll do a full tutorial with before and after they cure and everything and how they come out. So we'll see how that goes. So this is one of the molded stones. Then I have a natural stone as well, which this is the one I'm going to start with. So if you guys have natural stones, let's start with them first. If you don't have natural stones and you just have something small, like small wood cutouts, something coaster sized, or the molded stones, then we'll get started with those. Because what I want to show you on this one, and where there's a lot of freedom in natural stones, is you can place your center wherever. And we're going to, all of the projects that we do over the next 2 weeks, we are going to try and eyeball some centers, and we're going to try just completely going off center and learning what that kind of is like. Okay. So when you're doing a natural stone, there is, especially with a stone like this that's pre-made, it marks the center for you, which is really, really nice. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. That's a little bit better. So it marks the center for you. So these are really, really easy to do that. Now, when you're doing a natural stone, the beauty part of really anything that you paint on is just because the center is there and you want to go with symmetry, you don't have to. You can create a design and put your center dot literally anywhere you want. It's all dependent on how you want it to look at the end. So it's very pleasing, of course, to the eye to have it nice and centered. But there's a lot of ways that you can kind of play with that a little bit and create different designs without having it being centered. So we're going to play a lot with that over these next 2 weeks. And we are going to play with some trial and error as well. I apologize, I need to blow my nose. One moment, hold please. Now I turned away from the camera for that. Imagine how loud that would have been if I hadn't. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay. All you have for today is natural stones. That's perfect. That's good. So you don't have to have anything else that is a perfectly round or square anything. If all you have is natural stones, that is totally good, because we are going to play with a lot of that stuff. Now, so when it comes to the trial and error, though, I want to talk to you about being able to fix mistakes. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it with this one as well, is I am going to put a black base coat on it. Okay. Because we're learning our tools, and these exercises that we're going to go through is to learn the sizing and everything for our tools and our paints and how to fit the right amount around the center. I want to make sure that I have a background that I can easily cover up any mistakes or fixes that I have to do. So I am still going to put a base coat on this. So let's go ahead and put our base coat on now. You don't have to by any stretch. If you are comfortable with what you've got and then potentially putting a different base coat on after, or just getting to it really fast and wiping the paint off with like a damp cotton swab, that's okay. You just might be a little frustrating because of the background. Now, if you do want to paint just on natural stone, if you only have natural stone and you don't have a base color to put on it, I would strongly recommend we put a base color on it, though. The darker the better, preferably black, or you can go with any dark color, so that you have something like, for example, if I make a mistake on this one, I can wipe it off and I can paint over that mistake in black once it dries, and it'll cover it up like it was never even there. If you're doing it on natural stone without a base color, then if you make a mistake, you're going to have a really hard time removing that paint and getting it back to your original stone color to be able to move forward. It is possible to do, but I would recommend waiting and doing that once you're significantly more comfortable with your tools. And I'll show you what I mean by that, what I'm thinking, and I'll kind of walk you through what I'm thinking while I'm painting this here. Now, actually, let's talk about this. So when you are painting on this, you can draw yourself a guideline that you want to stay within if you want to, or you can just freehand it. I usually just freehand it, and then a lot of times I will even end up just painting the whole stone and the bottom of the stone as well, but I just get my painting surface ready. So I put a little bit of black paint on. That's probably too much, but we'll see how that does. Natural stone is going to absorb it fairly quickly. So I'm just putting on a decent coat. Now I'm using just paint from the dollar store. This is just regular craft acrylic paint, nothing fancy, no multi-surface or anything. They will work on here as well, but you don't need them. Okay, and it's probably going to take 2 base coats, because when you're painting on natural stone, especially if they're fairly bumpy, you're going to have some little holes. But again, it's completely up to you. If you like the texture that it leaves with just one coat of base, that's totally okay. If you want a super solid black background, then you might want to add a little bit more paint on there and do a second coat. So you can draw, again, your guidelines on there for what you want your outline to be, or you can just freehand it and kind of get all the way around. I always paint down over the edge as much as I can because I like to kind of go over the edge with my designs and have them kind of curve around the rock. So there's that. I'll put a little bit more here on the bottom. So if you're going to do natural stone without a background color, then definitely get used to your tools and your paints first. So one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of dot artists that I think I do it, but I think I don't consciously do it, is to consistently have one or two sizes that are your go-to sizes for your center dots. Right? Like I usually start off, especially if I'm doing something small, I know where I'm starting off from and where I want my what size I want my center dot to be. So as you get doing a couple different pieces, you're going to start to recognize which size of a center dot you really want to go with. Once you understand that, then you're going to know what size of a dotting tool do I need to use to get a nice tight circle around the center. So when I say a nice tight circle, this is what we're going to do. And spacing doesn't always work for it. So see how tight those dots are together in the center? There's no room for a space or any detail in between. That's what we're going to work on today. This is where the trial and error is going to come in, because if you choose a tool that is too big or too small, you could be left with spaces that you don't necessarily want to have. So it is going to be completely some trial and error to see what size tool we want to use and how those dots are going to fit and are they going to stay symmetrical. Now there's two different ways that I'm going to show you that we can do this. This is why I'm going to have two different pieces. So I want you to watch both of these ways to do it and then decide which way you think is going to be best for you. Or you can try them both alongside with me. If you have more than one piece ready, have two things ready, and we're going to do the same size center dot, and we're going to do two different techniques for getting all the way around the center. I have a particular favorite that I like to do because I get super, super picky when it comes to symmetry, but there's a lot of dot artists that don't, and they don't get bogged down with that. And that's something I would love to be able to embody a little bit more. But I will show you both of those techniques. So we'll go through the technique that I typically use, and then I'll show you a technique that a bunch of other dot artists use to get that original circle around the middle. I'll show you a couple of different ones. Okay, but it's all going to be muscle memory. It's going to depend on what you like when it comes out as the finished product. And you might find that you like always having spaces, that you don't like doing these super, super tight concentric circles. Totally okay. You might find that you like a smaller center dot. Really pay attention to what you like and what is aesthetically pleasing to you. Okay, so I'm just going to keep letting this one dry. And then on the other one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this stone. So I'm going to have two stones ready. Now, if you are using something square or something perfectly round, find your center. But the only thing to do for finding your center is going to be creating your center cross around that center. So what I tend to do with stones, sorry, I was just grabbing my tape measure. Well, I tend to use a flexible tape measure, like a sewing one. Okay, and so if you're using cardstock, Geraldine, that's perfectly good. So just find your center, or you can just wing it and put your center wherever you want. Okay, if you want to mark your center, I use a tape measure to kind of just draw that cross on if I want to hit right in the middle. But I'm going to do one here that's really off center. But the flexible tape measure, if you start getting into painting a lot of stones, it can be really helpful because it molds nicely to the stone to help you get a nice straight line. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick what size center dot I want to use. Okay. Now, I have found no hard and fast rule for how to do this. So what I tend to do is just look at all of the tools that I have and what is something that I have that is a bit bigger than the end of a pencil. Or you can use the end of a pencil. You want to be at least the size of the end of a pencil, if not a bit bigger. So I'm going to go, so this is the size that I'm going with. So see how, oops, we have the size of the pencil, and this one, actually I might go one size bigger. So see how it's just a little bit bigger than the end of a pencil. See the difference in the size there? So I'm going to go with that. It's totally good to go with this as well. Remembering that the more paint you put on your tool, you can make your dot even larger than what the tool would normally give you. So let's talk colors. This is complete and total freedom. You can, if you only have one color, these are still going to be pieces that are going to come together really nicely if you do just a single color the whole way through. If you took this any one of these stones and did just all of one of these colors in this dot arrangement going around, super, super easy. If you have two, what we'll work on, probably not today, but maybe next week, we'll be working it into a spiral. So you can take this exact same design and turn it into a spiral design with 2 or 3 colors going all the way around. You can change up the colors in each row if you want to. Pick 2 or 3 colors, or even if you just have one, like I said, you can have as many or as few colors as you want. You could do every single row in a completely different color if you want to. It is totally up to you. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to pick up a nice bright color that is going to look good and show up nicely for you guys to be able to see it. So I'm going to pick... what color do I want to do? I'm literally just sitting and looking at my paints. This is how I kind of come up with these. I think I'm actually going to go with rainbow, because this is going to stand out nicely for you guys, and it's going to give me a nice, easy way to kind of explain when I'm pointing out different color rows. So I'm going to go with rainbow. But again, choose as many or as few colors as you want. Yeah, Jan loves the spirals. We'll try and get into the spirals, or at least talk to you about how you would do it if you want to give it a try today. So let me see. So we've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I'm going to put a teal in there though too. Teal, blue. Where's my purple? Okay, I got to get out a purple then. And pour a little container of purple. No, I think this is it actually. Maybe. Yeah, that one's it. Purple and pink. Okay, so I've got all of my colors here. So I'm just going to do this because, again, this is going to make life easy for me to tell you kind of where we're going. But this design here, by simply changing the colors in it, can turn it into a spiral like this. So this is an 8-color spiral. Right, so each color is on here twice. You could do this with just 2 colors and do a complete and total alternating. You could do it with 3 or 4 colors. It's all going to depend on how many dots you get around that center circle. So the reason I like to do the spacing way is to make sure that I can know and have an even number of colors in here, so at the very least I can go by 2s. But you're going to want to watch that, because that's going to have an impact. Okay, so I'm going to pick my center dot color, and it's going to be for both of these stones, and I'm going to pick red. Okay, so that's going to be my first one. So that's my first one, and I've got both of my stones here now. So even if you have something that's perfectly round, if you're painting on something that's square like cardstock or a canvas, this is how you want to get started. So we're going to bounce back and forth between a couple different things constantly here, but actually here, sorry, let's start with the natural stone. So because I don't need to mark a center, and I don't need to worry about where that's going to go, I am going to go and just put this center dot anywhere I want to. So I think I'm actually going to put this center dot right about here. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a second because I'm also going to do the same thing on the second stone, because remember there's two different techniques for getting around that center circle that we're going to go through. I'm going to grab a little piece of sandpaper. I've got a little sanding block that I'm actually just going to shave that little bit off of there if I can. Maybe. Let's see if I can or not. On these molded stones, it does mark the center, so if you don't want to use it, you got to sand it down a little bit. There we go. And I'll just put a little bit of black paint on there. And this will dry really quickly here. So we have two different techniques for getting around that center circle, and remembering that we want the dots to be as close together as humanly possible. One of them is to pick a tool and just to start dotting around the center and not worry about spacing. Just literally start dotting a line around your center dot. That is when the technique where you're going to run the risk of having an uneven number of dots going around it. So that could make life a little bit more difficult for you if you do want to eventually do a spiral. But remember, we're testing out our tools. We want to see, with the size center dot that we made, what size tool do we need to use to create a nice, tight inner circle like this that we want to go through. Nope, no guidelines. Okay. So once I've got my center dot down on this one, I'm going to show you this one first. So I'm going in, when I'm testing out the spacing, I know that I've got a really good shot with my smallest tool of being able to squeeze lots in there. So usually I will start with my smallest tool and go all the way around, but you can start with literally any size tool you want, because if you don't like the spacing and how it looks after, you can wipe it out and start again. Okay, so actually let me show you that. Let me go in with a slightly larger tool. So I'm going to go in with one of my ball stylus tools. This would be the equivalent of probably 2 millimeters, I'm guessing. So if I want to do this the way that I normally do it with spacing, is I'm dipping the tool in the paint and I'm going to dot at 12 o'clock. I'm still going to dot at 12 o'clock straight in front of me. And then I'm going to hold the stone up and I'm going to dot at 12 o'clock again. This should feel familiar if you've watched some of my other tutorials. Doing my best to make sure that I've got the same amount of paint on the tool each time, and cleaning off the tool probably after every couple of dots. Okay, so I'm going to go dip again, and we're going to go 12 o'clock. And then we're going to turn again and go 12 o'clock. And now we're going to go through what I've done in previous videos, which is dividing these spaces in half. So remember, this is one of two methods, okay? This is my preferred method just because it keeps the spacing really nice and I really, really like it. So I'm going through here now and I'm just dividing these spaces up. My paint today is crazy, super thick. Will that make a difference? It's going to make your dots a little bit larger and it might cause the paint to peak a little bit, my dear. But yeah, that is going to impact the size of your dots that you are using with your tools. But it won't matter. Once you just get the muscle memory and just create them all the same size, you should be fine. Now, when I get to this point, this is where I evaluate. Do I have room for 2 more of these dots in here? If I did, see how small they'd have to be if I wanted to fit 2 in there, so they're not the same size. Okay, so this tells me then that I really only have room for 1 dot, and that leaves a lot bigger space than what I really wanted to go for, but it's okay. So I'm going to remove those few dots and I'm going to paint over it. And I'm actually going to paint over all of them because I want a really, really tight row of dots, and this is not tight enough for me. Okay, so I'm using a silicone brush, but you can use a cotton swab, you can use a toothpick, you can use a paintbrush, just to pull that wet paint off. This is how you get to know your tools. This is how you get to know what the quote-unquote right tool is supposed to be. Okay? This is all about finding out the relationship to the size around that center dot. Right? Like if that center dot was a little bit bigger, it would give me a little more real estate to work with, and I could probably fit those 2 dots in between. But because it's a little bit tighter, that's not going to work. So I'm just going to grab a small paintbrush. You don't need to use one that's as small as the one that I'm going to use. It's just the one that is in the easiest reach for me. And I'm going to paint over this orange. So this tells me that I either need to go smaller so that I have dots that will better accommodate those 2 dots in between instead of just being able to put 1, or I need to go slightly larger and still put the 1 dot in between, but have all of the dots be much closer together. And it's completely your preference of which one you want to do. But this is what the trial and error is going to teach you. Okay? Because you want to be able to know that when you're painting a stone, you can start with whatever size center dot you want, and you know what you're looking for as far as spacing. You will get to the point where you're able to eyeball it and say, no way 2 dots are getting in there, so I can only put 1 in there, and do I like it? Is that what I want? Is that the size I want? Okay, so I'm going to paint over that, let that dry. In the meantime, we're going to put a center dot on this one, and I'm going to show you the other technique for doing center dots that you can do with any size tool, but it's a little bit riskier. So again, I'm going to put my center dot way off center because I want to show you guys how you don't have to go with the center. You can create a beautifully spaced out round mandala no matter where your center is. And especially on natural stone, this is really going to come in handy because you're going to take some of the pressure off of yourself and not feel the necessity to have to find the exact center. Don't beat yourself up over that, okay? Did you bend your paintbrush or did it come like that? I bent it myself. It was when I was going to try and start learning how to dot. Oh, excuse me, sneeze is coming. Excuse me. So sorry. There are brush dotting courses out there, and I want to take one the next time she has her next round. Leona Hota teaches an incredible, from what I've heard anyway, everybody that I've talked to that's taken it absolutely loves it. And she teaches you how to mix paints properly so that you can dot using a brush. So this was one of the brushes that I bought thinking I was going to try to do it myself. And let's say it just didn't go well. All right, so you've seen the dotting at 12 o'clock, spacing them out, dividing your spaces in half, and just keep going until you can't fit any more dots in there. The other option is to just start dotting. So I dip the tool and I dot. Doesn't matter where I start. The trick here is to try and always get the same size dot and the same spacing between each one as I go all the way around. And again, understanding that by the time I get to the other side, I might not have enough room to put the final dot. This is the trial and error part again, right? So even just going through this exercise with a bunch of different size tools, just creating center dots and seeing how you can go around them and how it works for you, what size tools you're using. Do you like the look of it? How do you want them to be, right? And then we just dot all the way around. And I have no idea, looking at this right now, if I'm going to have enough space for all of the dots as I get all the way around here. And this one can be tough because it's super, super important that you keep consistent sizes in your dots. And when you want to work out spacing after, there's no guarantee that you're going to have a nice even number. This is really good for just doing the concentric circles though, because you don't need a nice number for that. So this one, oh, it worked. Look at that. And this is what we call dumb luck. Plain and simple. I had no idea if this was going to work. It worked. So now I'm going to not touch it and we're going to move on because that worked out well. If this hadn't worked out well, you go through, you remove your dots again and paint all the way around and do it again until you get it. Okay. Noreen's at the airport headed home. Did the move go well? Your stuff is on its way to you, my dear. Okay. So I'm going to go back in. Remember with the other one, if I'm doing the spacing, what I found out the first time was that my tool was not the right size to get a nice tight row of dots in there. So I either need to go smaller or larger. Sorry, I should have warned you I was going to honk in your ear. I have a feeling that I'm going to have to rename this tutorial the honker or something. So sorry, you guys. Springtime. Oh, I'm glad it went well, Noreen. That's wonderful. Okay, so I had to make the decision to either go smaller or larger on this one. I'm going to go larger just to show you what not having a super tiny, you can still have a nice tight row of dots without it being super, super tiny. So I'm going to go one size larger. And this time I'm going to go back to this spacing again, dotting at 12 o'clock. Okay. Dotting at 12 o'clock. And 12 o'clock again. I'm going to wipe off my tool. Make sure you're cleaning your tool off very regularly. Fred sneezed. Oh my gosh, I went out. So we've got a new horse here. And it's so cool because I can see her right from my window on my desk. Let me tell you, it's wonderful, but I don't get anything done because I just sit and watch her. And she's got one of the old guys in with her, and they're doing really, really well. But the donkeys and Fred comes over to hang out with her all the time. Oh my God, he loves her so much. And there's a young horse here that is just in love with Fred, and he wants nothing to do with her. She chases him, and he just hates it. It's so friggin' cute to watch them. All right, back we go. So see how now you can kind of see that only one dot is going to fit in there, right? In those spaces. Does that make sense? So now, your rock is the shape of Mr. Potato Head. It totally is. Oh my God, it totally is. And the red is where his nose would be too. That's awesome. I didn't notice that. Okay, now we go in and fill in the spaces and see how they're a nice tight fit now. So you either go larger or a little bit smaller. The practice here is dipping and dotting and getting the same size dot each time you dot, right? That's where the practice comes in. Whether you space it out this way or the other way, that is always where the practice is developing that muscle memory of dip and dot and dip and dot, and being able to wipe off your tool and then regain that muscle memory really quickly to jump back in and still get another consistent size dot. I find that the smaller you go here, the easier that is, but this one is pretty darn good. I'm okay with it. So this is now where we have an even number. I have no idea how many dots I have on here, and I could find out. Let's see. But I'd literally have to go and count. So it means I need to mark a spot on the stone so I remember where I started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it was an even number. So that's lucky. Again, because it might not be. Now, what some dot artists will do is right after this, they will create another row of the same size dot as this one and not worry about getting it into these little dips, right? So you see where there's the space here between those two dots and how we typically put a dot in there and get it slightly larger. Some people will just go and create a whole other row and create another circle around and not have it relate to this row in any way, shape, or form. I don't know how to do that. My mind cannot get past that, at least not with guidelines, without guidelines of how to not go into those spaces. I just don't know how to do it. It's like it's like saying, here's a piece of music and don't go, like, can be completely off beat. I don't know how to do it. It's something I naturally pick up on. So I don't know how that would work for you guys, but you can definitely try it. There's a couple great artists out there that do that. If you have a look on TikTok, Mindful Mandala Art, she does it a lot and she does a beautiful job. Fine Rosa also does that, where she'll just do a whole other row where she's not paying attention to where these spaces are in the row before. Like I said, though, I don't know how to do that. Just the idea of that stresses me out. Okay. Now, if you want to jump into a spiral sooner rather than later, you can create your center dot, and you could, so let's say, because I know that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 dots between 12 and 3 o'clock. And then at 3, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at 6 o'clock is number 1 again, 1, 2, 3, 4. I could do a 4 or an 8 color spiral. So an 8 color spiral would look like this. So it's still the same layout of your center dot, and the spacing around the center dot, you're just changing the color depending on where you are at in all of this. We will go over this again in another piece. It'll probably be next week, but that is how you would do it if you wanted to get in there. So I'm now going to go in with my next color, and I'm going to go slightly larger with the tool. Just for clarification, to make sure I heard correctly on TikTok, Mindful Mandala Art and Fine Rosa. Yeah, 2 different artists. Mindful Mandala Art and Fine Rosa's on Instagram. F as in Frank, EINROS as in Sam, A. And Mindful Mandala Art is on TikTok. Sorry, I don't think I mentioned that Fine Rosa. I don't think she's on TikTok. She might be, but I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to use my next color. And I'm just using the lid of my paint this time. I am going to wipe off my tool though, because there was a lot of paint on there. And this time I'm going to go in, and like I said, I don't know how to do those circles where people just go around the next row. I always go back into those spaces. So I'm going in here at just a slightly larger dot, and I still go every other one. The reason I go every other one is because it helps me with my spacing. So see how now if I go back in between these, I can see there's still a lot of space there. So that means my dots need to be a little bit larger. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint. That just helps me, I find, with my spacing, because if I start dotting one right after the other, you tend to lean one direction or another while you're painting, and so you find that, you know, you're always spacing a little closer. Oh, I just totally messed that one up. All right, let's pull that one off, because that one is no good. No good, that is. There we go. Be okay with making mistakes as well. This is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. Get comfortable with mistakes and get comfortable with how you fix mistakes, because the fixing the mistake and just knowing that you can fix it is going to take a lot of that stress away. It's when you get to something and you go, oh crap, I have no idea how to fix this. That's when the stress comes in. So just remember that I've given you the tool that I use a lot, almost every single day, which is having to pull the paint off, let it dry a little bit, and paint back over with your base color. Okay? So we'll go back and we'll finish off this row. Our goal for today is, again, just to continue to practice this and start to really get comfortable with your tools, get comfortable with your paints, and start to develop that muscle memory. That muscle memory is what allows you to create consistent size dots within your design. Now, when you're painting on a rough surface, you're going to make mistakes because the surface itself is going to fight against you sometimes and cause your paint to flow to places where you don't want it to flow. One artist, Delicate Dots Andrea, she actually goes in with some spackle and she smooths it over the surface of her natural stones to fill in any potholes, lets it dry and sands it down so that she has a nice smooth surface even on just a natural stone. So that's always an option for you as well, but keeping in mind that when you're painting on natural stone, you're going to have those little dips and cracks and everything in the stone that will impact where your paint goes. So that's again why you want to have the ability to go in and fix anything that you've done, right? So we're just going to keep going. We're going to do this on both of these, and I want to show how you can take the same design, the same colors, and put them on two different shapes and see the same thing. Altering it slightly, like being able to having these orange dots be larger than these orange dots, that's going to impact the design and how it looks, right? Excuse me. So being able to see how those things change, that's going to be as well. Changing up the sizes of the tools that you use for each of your designs is how you are going to figure out what you really like the look of, right? Do you like the look of the larger dots in the center? Do you like the look of the really tiny dots in the center? It's completely up to you and on your preferences, because there's no rule as to what you have to do here, okay? You literally can do this any way you want to. So I'm going to keep going with this natural stone, and I'm going to go slightly larger again. And again, I want to create these tight lines that don't have a ton of space. Even the yellow has a little bit more space than I would prefer. And I've got a hair in my paint, so bear with me. I got to just pull that out. Okay, here we go. Oh, shoot. I wiped my tool off on a section of my face cloth that had other paint on it. All right, here we go. So I want to create one that is a bit larger, right? But we're looking at that kind of halfway point on each of them. So if I put another dot right here, just to see what the spacing is going to look like, there's still quite a bit of space left in there, but I'm kind of happy with that amount. It's not big enough to be able to put anything in between, but it's enough that it lets that color show. So I normally do the every other, but if I want to test it out to see how it looks, then I can do that here, right? One after the other. So now that I kind of know that my size is good, I'm just going to go through. This is a great design to do when you get new paints, to check out their consistency and how they behave. And this is really the basis of all of your dot mandalas. One of the designs that Fine Rosa does is she does often little details on the ends of her mandalas that are these little circles with just a bunch of lines on there. And she does it so methodically that you know that she has used the same size tools to create that particular design multiple times, or knows the ratio of the size tools that she needs to use. And that's just all coming from practice, right? At some point you will get to the point where, you know, these are the most common tools that I use and I'm pretty comfortable with what they are going to do for me and what size dot they are going to give me. But that's just all going to take some practice and playing around with your tools. Okay, so this is going to feel very similar to the Starburst pattern if you were here for the Starburst tutorial. Right? Only we're just alternating colors, or if you're using the exact same color and just keep going, right? So even those are a little bit small. I probably should have gone up a size. We'll do that on the next row and I'll show you what it looks like. And again, there's no rules, so I can do it any way I want to. I can go lots of space, I can go no space, but when you're dealing with stone, especially natural stone, and when you're dealing with curves as well, curves are going to screw up your spacing, right? It's going to impact how far apart your dots are. So it's still not always about going with Am I getting this dot right in that perfect little space here? But is it creating the spacing that I want around the rest of the design? Okay, that's actually how tight I would like those dots to be. So I'm going to go up a size. I was using a 4. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm actually going to go up to a 6 for the next one. It's usually going up 1 to 2 sizes. Once you get into the bigger circles, you're going up 2 to 3 sizes if they're numbered. But just trial and error. Again, I didn't figure this out. I started by going up one size just to see what it looked like. And then if I didn't like it, then I said, okay, so on the next one, I'm going to go up 2 sizes and see how that looks when you finish a piece all the way to the edges. Just going up 2 sizes. How does it turn out? It's all practice and trial and error. And once you do that trial and error, you will start to remember which tools give you the effect that you want. Right? And because this one started with some larger dots around the center, this is going to increase the size that I need to go to for the remainder of this design, right? So if I was starting with a really small size, then my sizes would increase more gradually. But see how that spacing there, now that I'm going over the edge, the spacing is that little bit different, and that's okay. That's where the uniform stones kind of come in handy, but it's going to be okay. It's not, doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I promise your design will still look really good, even if the spacing is off a bit. So this one is a size 6 tool. So in the next row, I'm going to go up to a size 8. Because I went up 2 this time, I'm going to go up 2 again. Now let me see if I can find my number 8. There it is. And I'm going to grab my next color. And again, you can be using just a couple of colors. This would be the same process if you were doing a spiral. You're going to be still increasing your tool sizes just like you are if you go and do the same color all the way around. Okay. So I'm going to go and do every other. Developing that muscle memory. Now, once you get around to the edges, this is also where it's going to get a little tricky, because if your paint is really watery, your paint is going to look like it's going to start dripping down the sides. Okay, so there's a couple things you can do for that. Number 1 is don't put on as much paint and use a larger size tool, but don't use as high of a quantity of paint. So see how I've got quite a bit of paint on there? It's going to start to move, right? As it just sits and gravity takes over, right? We know that that's going to happen. So if you are nervous that your paint is going to run, number 1, you either use thicker paints, or if you want to continue using the paints you have, it's totally good. Just put less paint on your tool, use a slightly larger tool, because when you don't use as much paint, your dot size is going to be smaller. And then once you have finished your row or gotten to a point where, you know, if your dots have started to move and they're starting to drip down the sides and you're nervous and you want to stop it and say, I have to do this now, turn the piece upside down. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. This can happen as well sometimes with your thick paints too. Even if you're using a thick paint, as gravity comes in there, it's going to move the paint a little bit. So you might see it move. So you literally take your stone, hold it where you can, and turn it upside down. This is going to, I'm going to try and get a better angle. This is going to pull gravity down this way instead of pulling it down over the sides to change the sides. So craft acrylics thankfully dry fairly quickly, and you don't have to do this until they're completely dry, but if you're nervous about them running, then it's worth taking a little breather and hold it upside down for a little bit. Let me show you with one of these mugs kind of what I'm talking about here. So Here's why. So when we're looking at this mug, you see these little bulges of paint here? That's heavy volumes of paint that moved, right? It moved and it sunk down here. Now the edge was dry and this paint was still a little bit wet, so it's creating that little ridge there, right? That's what happens when gravity takes over. Or see this one? Oops, I had my paint in the mug. See this one here where the paint is up here? Because I had it sitting like this and upside down for a little while. And then I turned it over and I let it sit here, right? What I didn't do was turn it back over fast enough to keep those little ridges from happening, to keep that a little bit smoother. So I'm actually going to pull these off and I'm going to start over. Because when you compare that to, say, this one, where see how those little bulges are all still nice and in the middle? They haven't really moved a lot. Now that's partly because it's a smaller size dot, but it's also because I flipped this over more often than I did with this one, so it didn't have time to pool down here like this. If I had flipped this over again a little bit earlier, then that paint wouldn't move. It's going to happen on your stones though. Anytime you're using anything that is a curved surface, there is the potential for your paint to move and go down the sides. Now, see here where we're starting to get that dry edge around there. Can you see that? How it's kind of starting to dry? And on this one, it's starting to dry, and this one here, that's good. That lets us know that the paint's really not going to move very much because the paint is starting to dry. So if you can hold it upside down for a couple of minutes and keep checking on it to make sure, you know, that everything looks good and the way you want it to look, it's going to help keep that paint in the center and keep it from rolling down the sides. Fine Rosa, F as in Frank, EINROSA. Yes, correct, Jan. I'm going to take a little drink here. Sometimes you're going to find that you have to just stop and let your stone dry because you've run out of places to put your hand while you're dotting. So for example, if I wanted to dot over here, I want to make sure that I'm able to put my hand like here and be able to dot, right? So once I get another row of dots on here, I'm going to start to run out of places to put my hand while I'm dotting. Okay. So you might have to put them aside. And that's again why it's nice to have a couple different projects. Yes, Jan, have you used the gel medium? How have you found that? So Jan is going to tell us a little bit about gel medium. So keep an eye on the comments there, and she'll put what she knows in there, which is awesome. It's so great that everybody's used different things and can share this stuff. I've never used gel medium. What gel medium is used for is to thicken the paint. So if you have really watery paint, you can buy gel medium. I believe Liquitex, right? Do you use it all the time, Jan? It makes a big difference. So what are the benefits that you find of using the gel medium? Does it keep the paint from moving this much? And does it make your dots dry plumpier, or do they still dry really flat? I love this. I love how we can share all this stuff together. So it's one of the benefits of having multiple projects going too, because then you can set it aside and let it dry. The gel medium will help with the movement. It's not going to help if you don't have a place to put your hand and you need to, but it's going to help for sure with that. So Jan uses a couple of drops and stir it into your paint. Does keep the paint from moving, and you can make it however thick you want. Awesome. Perfect. I'm going to have to get some and then give it a try. So that's always an option to you guys. And, you know, with the Michael's 30 and 40% off coupons, you should be able to get some gel medium for under $20. And using it one drop at a time should mean that it should last you a fairly decent amount of time. And if it improves your paint and gives you that peace of mind that it's not going to drip all over the place, then that's good too. And Jan uses the Liquitex. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jan. All right, so let's put another row on this because I still have enough room to put my hand down. So I used an 8 on that last one. So that means on this one, I am going to use a 10, and I'm using purple. feel like that's not the right purple that I used before, though. I feel like this is going to be satin. Oh, that's right. That's where it is. Ah, woo! I changed my lids on it. I didn't want to use the multi-surface paints because they're satin finish, and I like the matte finish, so I wanted to make sure I had that. Okay, so I'm going in with a size 10. We're going to keep going. And if I wanted that really, really tight row again, I would need to use bigger tools here. It's kind of thrown me a little bit because I didn't start with a super, super tight row. It was fairly good, but it wasn't super tight like that little heartstone is, right? So if the tighter you want it to get, my recommendation would be start as small as you possibly can. And it's also what you're familiar with. Right? I'm super familiar with starting really, really small. So on this other one, we'll probably get significantly tighter rows of dots. All right. Here we go. It's been a long time since I've painted natural stone. This is fun. I forgot how fun this is. I like the relatively quick gratification too, right? When you're painting on stones and when you're painting on small things, you get a lot done really relatively quickly. So it feels really good. It feels like you're creating a whole bunch in a relatively short amount of time. Okay, so this is the beauty of a pattern like this as well. It allows you to practice without having to deal with guidelines, finding the exact center. You don't need any of that. You can just start going. I'm going to sneeze again. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Okay, now I have decisions to make now on this stone because I didn't paint it all the way down. I can stop this design and just start like the next row where it fits and not have it go all the way around. Or I can paint the rest of it if I want it to go further. I can paint just a little bit more of it if I want to, or I can continue to paint. Oh, thank you, Kim. Hi, how are you? Or I can continue to paint the whole stone black, but you can leave it like this as well, right? And then if I start on the pink, I would start it down around here where I think I've got space for it to go all the way around, and then only continue on with that what I have room for, right? So you can make that decision. Do you want to leave it where it is, or do you want to continue it on a little bit further? I'm going to leave this for now because even if you want to continue on and you haven't painted the whole thing black, you're going to have to turn this upside down to paint this bottom side and these bottom edges, and you want this to be dry enough so that you can turn it upside down and not have it smudge anything. Okay, so this is kind of a natural stopping point for this one. So we're going to pull back into this one now. How's everybody doing? Does anybody have any questions? Are we doing okay so far? Let me know how you're doing. I don't want to move on too fast if you guys aren't ready for me to. Is this helpful so far? Let me know. All right, I'm seeing thumbs up. Wonderful. Everybody doing okay? I could not make a spiral out of this because 2 dots along the what? Try again, Jan. Oh, good, Christy. I'm glad that it's helpful. Right, this one design is, and it's why you're going to hear me say it over and over and over again in every tutorial that I do. Oh, you gain 2 dots. Yeah, and that's the hard part, right? When you're doing your center circle, that's where you're laying the foundation of whether or not how you can switch it up. Because you gained 2 dots, you could do a 2-color spiral, but that's when you really need to go in and count and say, how many do I have? How many spaces do I have? Not just how many dots, how many spaces do I have? So that I know how I can continue to move that along, right? Does that make sense? But this is the design that just changing up the colors, changing up the spacing, changing up the size that you start with. You could go with a huge center dot and start really, really tiny with those around the edges. Oh, good, Catherine, I'm glad. And you can continue to make these designs look very, very different just by switching up little things here and there. It's exactly how I messed up. It's so hard, right? So it's when you do your spacing, that's when you want to really just start to get to know your tools so you can figure out where your spacing is going to be. And that's really, really important that you're able to look at it and go, okay, this wouldn't make a good spiral and this is why, right? Because being able to recognize this wouldn't make a good spiral and this is why is going to help you lay the foundation for doing a good spiral the next time, right? Does that make sense? I hope that helps. Okay, so let's keep going then. We are going to keep going. I am going to go in now with the next size. We'll go in here. I feel like this is going to be way too big. No, actually going to be pretty good. You guys can see this okay. So I'm going in every other. Every other. The reason I'm going a little bit slower with this is because I'm using a tool that I don't need to press all the way down to get the size that I want. This again is where that muscle memory comes into play, right? The more you do this, the more you're going to find how you're going to get used to the pressure that you put, right? The pressure that you put down on the tool and what that does to your dot sizes. And when you get going, you're going to start to feel what your natural pressure is. Just like everybody puts different pressure on their pen and paper, you're going to put different types of pressure based on the tool, based on just you, right? So getting used to how your tools work is going to make a big, big, big difference for you. Oh my gosh, I'm so full of snot today. I'm so sorry, you guys. And anybody who's watching the recording, hello, and I'm so sorry for talking about snot on this tutorial. All right, that one I'm going to make a little bit bigger. Oh, and I just messed it up. Fantastic. Should have waited to try it. So there's another good lesson. If you want to change the size of one of your dots, wait until that dot is dry before trying to add more paint to it, because that's what I just did wrong. That dot wasn't dry enough, and I tried to add more paint to it. So it, you know, the parts that had already started to dry fought back there, right, and kept the paint from spreading properly. Or the way I wanted it to, not properly. It spread exactly the way it was supposed to based with what was underneath it, so the paint didn't do anything wrong. That was my bad decision. Okay. There we go. Personal pressure, more P's, totally. I found that list the other day. I'm like, oh, I gotta do something with this list. Right? It is. It's one of those things that, yeah, we don't think about it, right? But it's... the more you remember how unique you are and that you want your uniqueness to come out in whatever it is that you create, being able to take a design and replicate it is incredibly valuable, and it's so good for the confidence. But if you try to do that and you're not okay with the bits of you that do show through, then you're denying your own piece of creativity that's just part of who you are. And it's going to impact how you use your tools, whether you want to continue, if the practicing is going to be fun or stressful, all those sorts of things. So you really want to kind of almost, it's a very interesting art form for developing quite the sense of self-awareness, right? Saying, you know what, this is just how I do it. It's not wrong. It's different than how other people do it, but it gives me an effect that looks beautiful and that I'm really, really happy with, right? That's the ultimate goal. Are you enjoying doing it is ultimate goal number 1. Ultimate goal number 2 is, when I get to the end of it, am I happy with my results? Right? So see how those are much more tightly put together? And then I'll just wait for that little bit of black to dry. So let's check back in over here. So these are all starting to dry now. The purple is starting to flatten out. And because I do have spaces in here, then I can now go in with some detail if I want to. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've got, where was that list that I saw? I think it was in my book. I saw it the other day. Where did I put it? So on one of the lives, we came up with, so Autumn came up with the 4 P's: paint, pressure, position, and pace. And then we added a bunch more. We added in practice, perseverance, Pepsi, play, pleasure, positivity, philosophy, and profanity. Those are all of the P's that we came up with. But really, the paint, when you think of the different things that can impact your dot size, the paint is one, right? Thin paint versus thick paint. That is going to impact your dot size. The pressure you put down on the tool is going to have make a difference. The position, how you're holding your tool. Are you holding it in as an angle as opposed to straight up and down? Are you placing it? That's going to impact your spacing. And your pace, how fast you're going. That is going to make a big difference as well. Barb, don't forget poop. Yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure my cat just came in here and took a nice big poop on here while we're fantastic while I can't clean it. But they do, and it is personal pressure, right? Because the pressure that I put is going to be a lot different than how you do. There's a lot of dart artists out there that say, you know, if that tool ever touches the surface, you're not doing it right, right? Yes, patience, Catherine. Yes, that's a big one. Patience is a big, big, big one too. I'll add it to the list. Right? But all of these things are going to impact your spacing. It's going to impact your sizing. It's going to impact your design staying consistent. All of these things are going to play a factor. So you want to make sure that you are aware of how it's all coming together and how your paints are reacting. And these are the things that you practice, right? That's why it's another P. It's big, big, big time practice. You have to be able to practice and figure out what's working and what doesn't. And when something doesn't work, you want to be as kind to yourself as you possibly can. That's why I love hearing Geraldine saying that she's painting on cardstock. You don't need fancy stuff to practice, right? Anything that you create, it doesn't matter what you're painting on. You're going to get to the point, if you fall in love with this, everything you see is like, oh, I wonder if I could dot on that. Oh, I bet you I could paint on that, right? How many times do you go to the store now and you go, oh, I could paint on that. Oh, a dot mandala would look really pretty on that, right? And it's addictive. It's super freaking addictive and it's super freaking fun. Let me just grab a little bit more paint here. My green is running low. The thing I like about doing these designs as well is that you don't necessarily need to add a lot of top dots or detail because you can create such a cool pattern with just the paints in this design, right? And you can add as little or as much detail to it as you want. But when you get in there and really get practicing with this design, this is your base for all dot mandalas, in my opinion. I think that this is, if you wanted to really, really, really hone your skill and really develop, this is the design I would say to practice over and over and over and over again. Switch up your colors, switch up your spacing, switch up your paint, switch up your size tools, and see how they look. See what you like and see what you don't like. I could go in here right now. Well, let's do that. I'm going to go in here right now with a size 6. Right? A size 6 is not going to let me do every single one because it's too big. right? But I might decide that I really like the idea of doing every other one with this now, right? So I go every other one. Right? Here we go. Sorry, I'm going to try and get this in front of the camera. So you can change this up whenever you want. And then what you can do is you can fill in that space. Right? So I could easily go back in now. Bear with me. I can go back in now with a smaller size tool, and I could add in a small green here. Right? Getting in between. It's all still variations of the same idea, right? We're not doing walking dots. We're not doing swoops. We're just doing these dots and creating these consistent sized dots that are basically in rows. Oops. Right? So there's that now. Now I can also, I'm going to go in with a slightly larger one that should fit right about in here. And again, you'll get to know your tools. You'll get to know which size dots fit best where, right? So if I put this here, oh, sorry guys. Right? So see how it's still creating those nice round circles, but you can do it with multiple different sizes of dots. So don't be afraid if you do put in a dot and you find that it's too big or too small, you can erase it and start it over again and paint over it and get back to your base color, or you can figure out how you can fill in those spaces in the middle. Right? Because it's still giving me a nice even circle all the way around. And what I think I'm going to be able to do is still put in another row of dots here. So we're going to try that. We're going to see how that goes. If I happen to forget to clean my tool in between a whole bunch of dots, what kind of impact does that have? That's a really good question. So that is what that's going to do is you're likely going to see the size of your dots increase, and you could see the shape of your dots go a little wonky. Because the paint is going to build up on your tool and it's going to start to dry. Even if you're constantly dipping and dotting and dipping and dotting, it's still going to start to dry and kind of congeal. So it could do so unevenly and end up getting some gunk in your paints too. That green to me is the perfect texture for that till you get to the sides. Yes, totally. Because look at how smooth that is. There's no bubbles. It's drying nicely. Yeah, it really is perfect, isn't it? And you'll start to get to know, like when you pour a paint, it's one of the reasons too why I like using these little paint bottles or using a palette, because when you pour the paint into that palette or pour the paint into the little bottles, you're going to recognize the texture of that paint really quick. You're either going to go, holy cow, that's really thick, or oh my gosh, this is water, right? You'll get to know what that perfect texture is. And then when you start to find your perfect paints, the ones that you enjoy the most and that you're the happiest with how they turn out, those are the ones to make sure you always keep them around so that you've got those to model them, because then you can stir one and stir another and see if the texture kind of matches up. Yeah, it does look pretty cool though, right? So we're going to go now in with the teal. And so here's the way I'm figuring this out. Okay. I used a size 3 here, which means I probably would have used my 4 and done a large 4 for that row, which means 5 would have been that row. So I'm now going to go to a 6. I'm not going to go up 2 sizes like I do sometimes because I don't know for sure, but this is still going to be a cool way to figure it out. Okay, I really like the green with the small and large dots. It looks really neat, eh? And that's the thing, you can fill these spaces however you want to. So let me actually turn the camera just a little bit. All right, so now I'm going in with a size 6, so I've gone up, right? Continue the progression of what I would have if I hadn't gone super large. I know that this is a size 6, so I'm thinking actually I might even go with a 5 because I think that this 6 might be a little bit too big, but actually, yeah, let's just try it and see what happens. We can always fix it, right? Trial and error. We got to be okay with trying new stuff and okay if it doesn't work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of trying to stick this dot in this dip here, what I want to do is kind of have the mid range of here and the mid range of here. Do you kind of see that? Do you see where I drew that on there? That's the size dot I'm looking to have. And I want to put it in a position where it's not going to disappear. And it's going to allow me to continue to make a nice straight row. So let's see how this works. So you're looking for that midway point. Oh, I think this is going to work. Let's see how straight this circle turns out to be. That's the scary part here for me. The part that stresses me out is this going to be a straight enough circle? Is it going to look all wonky and out of place? Right? So we'll just wing it and see how it goes. So what I'm doing when I'm laying down these dots, I'm looking for, does it fall within that kind of mid-range that I kind of scratched out at the beginning? And how far away is this dot that I'm about to lay down from the green dots? And does it match how far away it is from the green dots on these other ones? Okay. So I'm trying to mirror that placement. And I'm just eyeballing it, right? I just want it to look similar. Okay, cleaning off my tool. It's looking okay so far. Hi, Michelle, thank you. Teaching everybody how to paint some mandala stones. Okay, so we're just eyeballing this here. So just keep an eye on how far away your dot was from the green in the other dots that you've done, that you've placed, that you're happy with. Right, this one was a little bit too far to the left, but that's okay because I'm going to fill in some of that space by making that dot a little bigger. Keep going. And it's all about learning, right? It's not about perfection. Perfection is an unattainable place to try and get to. Where you want to get to is confident and inspired, right? And there we go. I think that worked out pretty good. Son of a gun. Look at that. So I think that turned out pretty good. So now we should be able to go in and continue with the next rows. So that one was a size 6. I am going to go up to a size 8 and go up 2 sizes on this one, because I know that once I get past a size 6, because of the practice, because of doing this over and over again, once I get past a size 6, I want to go up a couple of sizes. Okay? So I'm going to go up another size, up a couple sizes. We're going to do another row here. And then I'm gonna show you a couple other different things that you can do, like that are variations like the green. And then we will come back into this one and we'll keep going with this one too. Okay. So I'm going up to a size 8 this time. And let's just doing my every other one. I love this blue paint. Jan, I need to send you some of this blue paint, don't I? Oh, Make that a little bit bigger. Honestly, I gotta tell you, I'm a little impressed with myself with this circle. This is the first time I've done something like that. And I'm very, very pleased with how it turned out. So that must mean that what I'm saying I'm doing actually works, which is nice. Can you close that gate? Thank you. There we go. So now I can go back in and fill in those spaces. And again, this is the muscle memory part too, right? Is how far am I dipping the tool into the paint? How much pressure am I putting down when I dot? Once you start kind of getting into that, you're going to get into more of a dip and dot and dip and dot kind of pattern. Well, those ones are significantly smaller. There we go. The puppies are going outside and they're so happy. I love how there's so many animals around here all the time. And then there. And then a couple more. And then there. So now this one and these ones here now are going to start to go over that edge. So I need to be very cognizant of how that's going to go over there, and are they going to drip, and how am I going to hold it properly so that I can get down to those pieces. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this to dry, and then I'm going to paint the rest of the bottom black so that I can continue to go over the edge. Okay. That's a big fat yes, please. Okay, Jen, can you do me a favor and shoot me a message and remind me of your mailing address so I can get that out to you? That would be awesome if you don't mind. And Sharon, did you want a bottle of it too? Anybody in the US, if you want a bottle of this blue stuff, shoot me a message. The blue paint, it's called Peacock Blue, and it's a craft acrylic that I actually get at my dollar store. It's my favorite blue paint. I think it's probably my favorite paint overall, just this one color. I like the craft, the paint that I get at the Dollarama, but it's the blue that really does it for me. But if you want some of it, let me know, and I'll get you to just pay shipping, and I'll send it down to you. Awesome. Thanks, Jen. All right, so this one I'm going to let dry, okay? And then, like I said, I'm going to paint that bottom part black again, and it's 222. I like recognizing when those numbers come up. Anyways, I am going to let this dry a little bit so that I can get over the edge after. So for now, we're going to put this aside, and we are going to go back to this guy. I'm going to zoom out again. So now we've got pink. So with this one, I'm not going to continue painting the edge. I'm just going to continue the design. So what I have to do now is I have to remember what size tool did I use. This is the hard part about going back and forth between tools. So I do a lot of measuring where I will take the tool and know that if I see that kind of an edge around there, then it probably, when I put a lot of paint on this tool, it was creating the right size. So see how that has that little bit of edge around there? So because I used a 10, then that means I want to go up to a 12 now. Actually, I might even go up to a 13. This is where I start to go into 3 sizes larger, right? And let's see here. So we are going to start. So now the center is nice and dry, so I can actually put my hand in the center, which is good. And then I think I'm going to start here, or I could go over that edge. That would look pretty too. Why don't we do that? I think that would be cool. So let's start with pink. Oops, got a little bit of a bubble. That usually happens when you don't have enough paint on, or you put too much pressure down when you're laying the dot down. So if I'd wanted these to be much tighter, like was my original plan, I would want to use an even larger size, but I would have wanted to do that on the subsequent rows. So I'm okay with it being the distance that it's at now. I'm just going to add lots of paint on here to make these dots as big as I possibly can with this tool. So when I go and do these, so every time I'm placing a dot, I'm not just looking to see, is it going into that perfect center, but is it going the same distance out from the purple as I put the other dots, right? Again, that's the muscle memory part that's going to come in. So I'm going to go over top of that black and let it go over the edge. Totally okay with that. Keeping in mind too that again, as your sides curve, you're going to see your spacing change. Don't get freaked out about that. It is normal. It is going to happen. And I'm going to show you on this heart that I did how that happens on there too. So see how these ones are a little bit closer together, and that's okay. And that's going to happen. Don't freak out. So this again is another one where I have to make a decision, say, okay, if I'm going to go on with the next row, how am I going to do this? Right? How am I going to hold it? How am I going to have it go all the way around? This one I am going to start with just right here and go all the way around. But I like that, how it went over the edge, right? Because then I'll start here and just keep working my way around. I might even put another one here, but we'll see. This is the hard part though too, when it comes to where do I set it down and how do I set it down without smudging it. Every time you're using these curved edges, it's incredibly important to be aware of what are you setting it down on. If I set it down on this, is there a chance that those sides are going to run into the sponge? Right? I want to be able to know if that's going to happen. If it is, then I want to find something else, like maybe another one of these paint pots or something that I can set it on while it starts to dry, where it's not going to potentially smudge over here. Does that make sense, you guys? Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to blow my nose here. Sorry. Okay, maybe. Okay. Okay, I think we're done with the snot again for a minute. All right. Sorry to everybody watching the recording. Sorry for talking about snot again. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you for persisting with me, even though I talk about snot. Okay, grabbed a sip. How are you guys feeling? Let me know what questions you have coming up right now. Is there stuff that I have covered that you want me to talk about a little bit more? And while you are typing that into the comments, let's talk about this spacing. So remember how I said when you go through these curves, you're going to see your spacing is going to change. So see how this is a heart-shaped stone, right? So as I start going around these edges, this spacing is completely changing compared to how it was here, how it is on the sides. So see how it goes around, so it's nice and even there, and I get around to these curves that come up like this, right? The spacing is changing when you get into these dips of different spacing or different edges and different curves. That is going to impact your spacing. Do the best you can to continue on your design, because I can tell you right now that when I'm looking at this stone, even when I'm turning it around, the last thing that I'm concerned with is those spaces. And see how those ones I had to kind of keep going and didn't even follow that spacing? It's okay. Okay? So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But that's going to happen. And when you go like around a corner like this, that's going to be the same as going over the edges like over here. Daisy? Daisy, get down. Oh my God. Jesus. You guys might hear a cat fight here in a minute. Bear with me. Daisy? Come here. You coming? Come here. Come here. All right, everybody, you want to say hello to Daisy? No, you can't go up there where the paint is. Here's Daisy. Hey, everybody. Here's Daisy. There we go. Okay, so I got to get a blanket on here so you don't claw my legs off. Yeah, come and sit. You're okay, Audrey. And Audrey's mad. Audrey doesn't like Daisy. Audrey is not happy. All right. Anyways, there's our little sidetrack. You okay, Daisy? Yeah? All right. Here we go. So have a seat, Daisy. So when you go over these edges, it's going to be the same. When you go over the edges on your stone, no, stay here. When you go over the edges on your stone, you're going to see similar spacing differences like that when you get around to these different edges. Not so much on these stones, but when you get to the edge of these stones, what you're going to find is it actually increases almost the surface area, right? Because it's going from small to large to small again. So just don't let it freak you out when it happens, because it will happen. Daisy, stop. Just sit down. Okay. Any questions? Yay, Kitty. Yeah, she's so fantastic. And thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Cindy. All right. So, any questions at all? We're doing okay? Because if we are, then we're going to continue on with this one. You just stay put, Daisy. And I'm going to show you something else here. So, I'm going to go in with a smaller tool. Thank you. That's so nice. I'm going to go in with a smaller tool, and I'm going to show you some other ways that you can change up this design and make it look a little different just by changing the size of your dots. Okay, so next week, we will get into spirals. We will get into walking dots and everything like that, still on stones and small things. We'll talk about micro dotting, all of that sort of stuff. And we'll talk about top dots. We'll come back to the natural stone and look at different ways that we can enhance that with different details. But for now, let's keep going with this. So let me move the camera here. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to pick a random smaller tool. I'm going to go back to one of the sizes of the inside dots. I think I'm actually going to go to the size of the yellow. Actually, I might go just a little bit bigger. Yeah, I am going to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to a size 4. So what I'm going to do here with the purple is, hopefully you guys can see this okay. Let me see if I zoom in a little bit, if it'll be even better. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go here. So I'm going smaller this time, right? Smaller. And then here we go. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. I think we'll have a couple of votes for people who are totally good with spending some more time on spirals, eh, Jan? Okay, so I'm going to keep going around. So see how I'm getting closer to the edge? That spacing is almost getting a little bit smaller. Here we go. Oops. This is also where you have to kind of wait sometimes for things to dry to be able to hold things properly, to be able to continue on, right? I think that's way too close. There we go. Let's see if I can get a little bit more light on here too. Hopefully you guys can see okay. Right, and there. And there. And there. Okay, so I've put in a smaller row of dots, right? Can you guys see that okay? It feels like there's a lot of glare. Hopefully it's all right. Hopefully it's... Let's see if I can get in here in the light a little bit more. Okay, so now the next one that I'm doing is I have a couple different options. I can go in and do a larger dot, or I can start to kind of almost nest these in with each other. So that was a size 4. I'm going to go to a size 5, just slightly bigger. Okay, you guys can see good? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Caroline. Is it Caroline or Carolyn? I apologize. Whichever way you pronounce it, let me know. Okay, so I went up too big. So that I need a size 5. It's this one here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually place another dot in here. I'm not going to go all the way down to the bottom, but see how I'm going to kind of, it's not going to be set out as far. So I'm nesting it down further and closer to that blue. Right, so I'm still going a little bit bigger than those purple dots that I made. All right, oops. All right, still bigger than the purple dots. And this is a way you could do it right from the very beginning. Like if you spaced out that original orange row with larger spaces like this, you could nest the next row right in it all the way out. And that would give you another whole different effect. We'll have to try that one too. Maybe we'll try one of those. Right, where you go up in size, but you nest them in together a little bit closer. Hey. All right, and then here we go. And let's keep going. Oh, no, Daisy, no. Oh, God. No. Daisy, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. She got through one of the bars earlier, so she was sitting on my lap. Daisy. Oh, Daisy, come here. It's okay, come here. It's okay. If you come and sit on my lap, you can stay. Come here.
No, you little munchkin.
Grab onto everything. No, don't make me go. Say bye, Daisy. We'll see you later. As long as she was sitting, she was good. But as soon as she wanted to jump into the paints, it was a whole different story. Who knew she could squeeze through? All right, here we go. Here we go. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here. Well, maybe I'll try this. I'll show you a layout of this one. We'll pull out one of my other pieces that I had ready, and I'll actually show you the layout for how you could set up your whole piece to nest like this. Would that be valuable for you guys to see that third way of doing it? Because we can totally do that. So see how they're kind of nesting? And it would be kind of cool to see the color progression on that. I'll fix this one after. I just want to get the whole row in there. Okay, and here. And there. Okay, so see how they're kind of nested down in each other, within each other. I'm going to go up another size again. I'm going to go to a 6, and this time I'm going back to the red because it's the first color in my rainbow. And you'll start to see this kind of flesh out a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way around the whole stone again this time, but we'll start over here. So I'm using a size 6, just up one size compared to the pink. The paint's a little bit thicker, so that's making a bit of an impact, but... Oh, and I'm too far out of camera. Sorry, guys. We're going to play with this for a couple of minutes because I think once I get a couple of rows in this, I think it's going to look really, really cool. So there's so many ways to use just this one design to create so many different patterns just by changing up the size. So the gradient is always really nice to see the small into the large, but there's so many cool different things you can do. It's really just a big old game of Tetris, only the pieces are round, right? You can put them in there however the heck you want to. It's completely up to you. And you can have a little bit of fun with them. So I'm gonna go just that far. And we're gonna go back in now with the orange. Excuse me. And I'm going to go to a size 7. I have to leave. Dogs barking, granddaughter call. Will this be on Patreon? Yes, this will be on Patreon. Yeah, it'll be up on Patreon within 24 hours, and it'll be available individually on my website also within 24 hours. So by end of day on Monday at the very, very latest. I'm hoping to get it up there tomorrow for you guys. I'm glad that it was helpful, Nancy. That makes me happy. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for popping on. So anybody here who is new, if you want access to the recording of the tutorial, they'll be available individually on my website or as part of my Patreon. The link for my Patreon's in my bio. It's basically like a monthly membership kind of idea. There is one tutorial that is exclusive to Patreon that I won't be selling on my website, and I plan to do some other tutorials that will be exclusive to Patreon too. But for right now, that's how it's set up. These tutorials are always free to attend, you guys. So please tell your friends if you have somebody you think might like to do this, that you think might like to join. It would be great to grow this little community that we're building here. And they're always free to attend. I do accept tips. They're certainly not mandatory, but if that's always an option, if that's something that moves you, but these will always be free to go live if you want to come and jump in live. So now I need to find, I think I just used a 7, so now let's use the 8. So see how this design is starting to look a little bit different compared to the concentric circles from before, right? So it's kind of cool. It's kind of like an alternating. And again, though, it's the same basic design, right? Think about alternating colors. This would create some really cool stripes of color. Oops, and I missed one over here. Oops. Getting out to the edge again. Okay, we're going to keep going with this because see how it looks so different compared to the other edge. So I'm going to grab my 9 and my green. We're going to keep going. Yes, I think that would be really cool, Jan. That's something I would really, really love to do, is have some kind of exclusive Zooms and stuff for Patreon, even just to ask questions and say, hey, everybody, let's bring together all of our current projects. Let's show each other what we're working on. What questions do we have? Where are we looking for inspiration? Do we have things to paint on that we don't know what to do with them yet and we want to brainstorm some ideas with other people? I think it would be a really cool creative space. Or even just say, hey, you know what? We're not going to paint anything specific together. We're just going to paint together. Whatever you're working on, let's just hang out. I think that would be super, super fun to do for the Patreon community. And if anybody's wondering about the price for the Patreon community, it's $13 US a month. And you get access to every one of the recordings, past, present, and future. Okay, so let me keep going here because I think you're starting to see this part of the design come to life. Right, this nesting. So you could start this right from the very, very first row. And maybe that's what I'll do here. Once I'm done this next one, and I'm just going up one size. Okay, so once I'm done and get towards the edge of this, why don't we start one from the very center, and I'll show you how you would start one like this to be able to nest it the whole way out. Did I miss any over here? I put my stones on these little sponges. I get these little round sponges just because it makes it super easy to spin them around. Dot Art Depot sells little mini Lazy Susans for like $10 US. So that's an option for you as well, for those little spinners that can be great for spacing everything out and helping you turn your piece. So that's an option if that's something that sounds interesting to you, Daughter at Depot has a lot of that cool stuff. And Daughter at Depot is actually run by the first lady that I ever started watching do Mandalas. She's who I learned everything from, Lydia May. She has a ton, like 80 or 90 free tutorials on YouTube as well. It's really pretty cool. But all kinds of options out there. Oh, I forgot the teal. Crap, that's what looks different. So when I do that, I'm faced with the decision, right? Do I now wait for this purple to paint to dry, or do I stop it and then paint back over? Or do I just keep going? And I'm just going to keep going with this one because why not? Right? But there is a big part of me that says, okay, so I'm going to wait for this to dry and I'm going to pull off all the purple paint and all of the blue paint and add that teal row because I missed it. Okay, let's scroll back and see here. Oh, awesome. Yeah, Cindy, sorry about that. Thank you, Sharon, for answering that. Can I have an alcoholic beverage during this? Yeah. I know, she's a mean moderator, isn't she? Doesn't let you have any fun. Why is my paint so shiny? Is it the light? Yeah, part of it's the light. I've got a lot of lighting going on here. I have a desk lamp. Let's show you. So I've got my ceiling light. I have my desk lamp here. And I have my round ring light giving me my backlight. If I cannot have you, you cannot either. If I can't have any, you cannot either. Oh, that's not fair. I'm so sorry. I wish you could. Put the purple between. It looks pretty cool though, eh? Like that, it's just an interesting other little idea. It looks like Skittles now. So let's just for fun, let's look at this nesting idea and how we would get it started right from the very beginning. You can do the teal in between the purple. Oh, that would be cool. Okay, let's do that. I totally get you now. Sorry, Catherine, I didn't get there. I think that's what you meant too. Thanks, Angela. All right, so I'm going to go in with the teal after the purple. And we'll go right there. When your paint is a little thicker, that's where you could get those little suction areas. Or if you put too much pressure down, or uneven pressure can do that as well. Right, so you can nest all of these down in there, and it'll create a whole different kind of pattern for you. Okay. No, that's okay. You have nothing to apologize for. It was my brain that wasn't getting there. All right. So, does that make sense though? This is how we can kind of finish off these stones, right? So you can go with these nice little tight rows here, or you can have really big spacing and it almost looks like dragon scales. So let's show you how we would set that up, shall we? Let's do that. Let's show how we would start this one. I have enough for both of us, Sharon, because that's the kind of friend I am. That's a good friend. That is a good friend. I'm going to actually go with a different stone. And I'm going to just... Am I? No. Here's what I'm going to do. I have one of these. Let's do it here. Okay, I'm just finding another round circle that didn't have a hole in it to start with this. Still no, Pauline is the one who has my share. All right, so I'm going to, again, put in a center dot, okay? And I'm going to put it anywhere on this surface. And I'm just going to show you how to set that layout for that nesting. So I'm going to just put it anywhere I want. And this is a nice way to practice too, is take the pressure off yourself. You don't need guidelines. You don't need to be perfectly centered. You can put one of these anywhere you want. Okay, so we're going to start really, really tiny and with lots of space. So I'm going to start down with my size 1 tool and we're going to work our way up. Okay, Sharon's going to think about it. Jan might cry. All right, we got 10 minutes. So I'm going to go in with my number 1, and I'm going to leave some space, but I'm still going to start out the same way, dotting at 12 o'clock and getting my spacing in there. Right? Only this time I'm going to leave significantly larger spaces, so I have room to nest the next row down in it. And of course, I'm sure you can all predict that I'm listening to Jason Mraz while we're doing this. So I could actually, I think if I put one more dot in the middle, it's going to be too tight. So you know what I'm actually going to do? And this is going to freak people out a little bit. I'm going to get rid of every other one. And instead of just having that one dividing that one in half, I'm going to put 2 in between the first 4. In between the poles. So I'll show you what I mean. Grab my little paintbrush and my black. Dotted hairbrushes. I'm envisioning, hang on, let's see. What number did you use with the red? I used a 16 for the red. And then I'm going in with a 1. I'm envisioning Jan and Sharon throwing hairbrushes. Dotted hairbrushes. You throw staplers. Oh my gosh. That's serious. That's no messing around, Sharon. That means staplers mean business. All right, so let me just cover these up. Anybody else have other questions about anything that we've covered so far today? If you're not already a member of the Facebook group, Mandala Addicts by Mandala Love Affair, please. One of the things that I promise I'll get myself together and be able to start putting that in the comments at the beginning of the live and to have it ready to copy and paste into the comments. I don't have that ready today, so I apologize, but I do have a Facebook group. And if you want to show, stuff that you're working on and get some advice, we can definitely do that. What's the name of the number tools you make to circles? Okay, so they are dotting tools, and they are by DIY Mandala Stones. They're on Etsy or on Amazon, and they come in sets with a bunch of different sizes from a size 1 all the way up to a size 28. Let me show you the 28. There's the size 28, so you can get all sizes in between. And they're really, really fun to work with. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with my size 1, and instead of putting in, I'm going to eyeball 2 dots in between, because that's going to leave the amount of space to nest the next one down, I think. It still might be too tight of a space, but we're going to try it and see. Mm-hmm. 2. And 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with a size 2 in the next color, and I'm going to put the next one in as close to the red as I can get it. I'm the daughter of a construction engineer, always a lot of tools about to toss. Well, as long as you got all kinds of it. Speaking from experience, it saves GUR if you base coat both sides before dotting, 100%. It's always better if you can have your piece fully prepared before starting. So I'm going in with my size 2 now, and I'm going to get in there as close as I can. It's still too much space. I mean, it's not enough space. So I actually should have gone smaller with the orange, but that's okay. We'll get it for the next row. So I'm going in. And that's okay. We can fill in that space, and it'll go good from here on out. Again, letting go of the need for perfection and seeing how can I make what I've done already work for me. Right? So now I'm going to go in with my green, and I'm going to go in with a size 3. Carolyn. I put a link to the tools in the Facebook group for you. Oh, that's so nice of you, Sharon. Thank you for doing that for her. Hi, Hazel. How you doing? It's good to see you. All right, so we're going in with the green. And I'm putting it as close to the orange as I can get it. So imagine though, if I decided to continue on with orange, it would be creating these really pretty stripes all the way out from the center circle. And again, you could do that with any colors you want, right? And you could create any kind of design like that you want. I think that one would actually be really cool. In we go. I'm going a little faster here so my dots aren't staying perfectly round, but see how they're fitting in there like a little star. It's another way that you can use this pattern to get used to your paints, to get used to your tools, to kind of practice spacing or color combos or any of that stuff. Now we're going to remember the teal, and I'm going to go in with a size 4 now. I'm going up one size at a time, but see how it's kind of almost looking patchwork, right? So again, imagine if I had gone in with the same 2 colors over and over again, and it would be creating these pretty little stripes all the way out from the center. Right? I want to get a full rainbow in here to be able to show you guys, so we might go over a little bit today. I hope that's okay. Is everybody doing okay, though, with what we've gone over today? Is there any questions? Anything I can help with before we get ready to sign off here? Because we're going to start the long goodbye here in a couple of minutes. It's not going to be as long because this is a recording. I don't want to put anybody watching the recording through all of this. So if you're watching the recording, once I say we're starting the long goodbye, you don't have to keep watching. It's just me not being able to hang up the phone on my friends. That's all it is. All right, so now I'm going in with a size 5. Doing this one super fast because I want to get these colors in to show you what it looks like all nested like that. Whoa, that's not the right size tool. Nope. There we go. I almost went in with a 10. I read the 6 upside down, the 9 upside down as a 6. So see, again, I'm going as close to the green as I can, right? I'll do one that's like this, the nested ones, but with solid colors. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do nested with like just alternating colors to make it look like stripes coming out from the center. We'll do that next week, and we'll do spirals to continue on with this. And again, no guidelines, just a small piece and a few tools, and let's play with some patterns and some paints. If you pour your paint into a palette, do I have to worry about it drying out between cycles of colors? Not usually. It depends on how many colors I think that you have, but you will start to notice it if you don't cover it like every other one, right? So make sure that you have a wet paper towel handy, and I would just get into the habit of covering it up just to be on the safe side, because it might not in one round, but if you forget and don't cover it up before a second round, it's gonna start getting gummy. So see, this is actually really cool. I've never done one like this. This is neat. I'm excited to try the stripes because I think that could look really cool, like a starburst. And you could do it with every single color, right? All right, I'm gonna go up one more size. I'm going up to a 7 now. Maybe if I can find my 7. Is that it? There it is. And then we go to pink. Oh, good. I'm glad you're doing good, Geraldine. That's good. Are you having fun with it so far? Geraldine is the mom of a friend of mine that I used to work with when I lived in St. John, New Brunswick. Her daughter's one of my favorite people. She's just the bee's knees. So it's exciting to have you here. And I hope that this is helpful. So you can imagine how this pattern fills out. You don't have a lot of blank space when you do a pattern like this where you're kind of putting the dots all nice and close together like that. But it's a cool, different way to kind of get your layout in there. Good, I'm glad. All right, let's go one more time. Do a couple more rows here just to keep going. So I'm going up a size again. I'm going to an 8. I'm going back to my original color. This is when I kind of get into a bit of a zone because this is where the meditative part of it comes in a little bit, right? Okay, so that was a size 8. I'm going to go to a size 9 now. We're just going to keep going for a little bit more. I like the idea of getting 2 full rainbows in here now that I've said that. Get right to the edge. So now I'm going in with a size 9. So you can see again how this would be a nice meditative part of one of these designs, right? Because you just go on automatic and just can fill it in there. And that's when the fun really comes in. That's when you start getting inspiration and ideas for new things, when you can just let yourself sink into the flow of the whole thing. This art form has become a coping mechanism for me, because it's just so therapeutic and relaxing to me that it's my happy place. And I hope that it brings you some joy and some peace when you're doing it too. I'm adoring this pattern so much. Yay, good. And Geraldine, yeah, thank you, loving the colors. Good. Yes, try this one too, because it's a neat idea with nesting it all in there, right? See how it all just sits in? And it almost looks like a patchwork, sort of. I'm going to keep going here. Yellow. My yellow's really watery. But that's okay, because I want big dots here. And I'm going to let this drip over the sides. The cool thing sometimes with the edges, and then you can let it drip over the side and just let... I'll put extra paint on that one, actually, hoping that it'll drip over the sides even more. Because it's a cool effect when they just drip down the sides. Geraldine, will you give Miss Carrie and those beautiful little kiddos of hers a hug for me next time you see them? Carrie hugs are the best. All right. Hi, Paula. Thank you, Catherine. That's okay, Paula. I'm glad you're able to sneak in for a quick minute here. We're just finishing off a little bit of a design here, and I'll talk more about it next week too, because we'll do some more of this next week, because I think this is really cool and it deserves a little more time compared to just at the end today. So we'll come back to this pattern again next week. Continuing on with painting something small. If you've got your own natural stones, all of these designs will work well on natural stones and help you practice all of that spacing and everything that you want to start getting used to when playing with your tools, right? There. And one more. Will do. That's what she said about you the other day. Oh, I miss her. I wish I could get down to New Brunswick. I don't think that they're going to be open up travel for that anytime soon. You guys are in a nice Wonderfully safe little bubble down there. And I think that's how you should stay. Beautiful day outside in Northeast Pennsylvania. Oh, nice. I'm glad you're getting some good weather. Beautiful weather in California. Oh, I love California. I miss California. I want to go back to California someday. Someday, when I get my bus and convert it and start driving all over North America, I will be coming around to see you people. I had this vision the other day, you guys, that I wanted to have my own little compound full of tiny houses and camping spaces and then run artist retreats. Wouldn't that be fun? So you just want a nice peaceful place to come and hang out. You've got people you can create with because there's other creatives around, or you can have some isolation and some peace and quiet if you want to. That works too. But just the idea of it just made me really excited. I thought I would love to do that, like an Airbnb for artists, to just give you a nice, peaceful, creative space to come and hang out and do workshops and say, hey, everybody come up for a week and we'll go do stuff and we'll paint a bunch. I think it would be really cool to do that. That's kind of my new big dream that I'm working towards. And it's not even a dream. I'm going to do it. It's just a matter of when. But I bet I'm saying this here now. It's going to happen. Southeast PA. That's okay. Hit up the tiny pub. Yep. Right? A week of workshops and just sit and paint together and then have some barbecues and have a bonfire. I always pictured having a barn with a big screen on the side of it, like an old white bed sheet and a projector, and watching movies, sitting outside with some animals and painting all day. And just being creative and having creative spaces where you can be, like having meditation spaces, maybe having someone come out and teach a yoga class, and have some spots where you can just go and sit and enjoy sitting in the woods with some peace and quiet. There's all kinds of ideas flowing through my head, let me tell you. All right, one more. Yes, totally Little Betty White vibes, dancing around the fire. My God, wouldn't that be fun? That'd be so much fun. Yeah, it was a great movie. It was an awesome movie, and the outtakes are amazing too. I love always watching the outtakes of movies. So is this this giving you a good idea of this kind of design where you're almost getting in there? So we'll do stripes next week. So we'll do stripes of color with this kind of idea and design, how we would add detail to that, and we will talk about spirals because they are both just branches of this same design. And I'm going to be getting more involved in the Facebook group. I've been very quiet because I've been trying to kind of get my own stuff in order and everything. But definitely let me know if there are things that you want to see in tutorials, things that you want me to cover, specific topics or anything. Please let me know, whether you're in the Facebook group or not. Shoot me a message. Let me know what you'd like to see. But the Facebook group would be the ideal place to put that sort of stuff. So if you have ideas on what you'd like to see in tutorials or for project ideas, all of that sort of stuff, please let me know. And like I said, if you want access to the recording of this tutorial, it'll be available on my website. And it's also going to be available as part of my Patreon. If you go to my website today, or within the next 10 minutes or so, you're going to see that the price of this one is $1. That is the setup that I have for tips. So if you want access to the recording, you would have to change that to a quantity of 5. So just be mindful of what price it is. If it's $1, you need a quantity of 5 to get the recording. Otherwise, it's just like, I left it open. So if anybody wanted to leave me a tip, then that's where they would do it. But I haven't really figured out a great system for that. Anyways, just keep an eye out and wait until it says $5 and then know for sure that that's what's going to get you the tutorial, okay? Oh, I'm so glad, Angela. Oh, yes, I can do that right now. So these are DIY mandala stones. This is something that in the future I'm hoping to work with her and actually carry some of these tools on my website as well, or at least work with her on this sort of stuff. So these are fantastic tools. She's actually redone a bunch. I think she's got a big sale going on her website right now to clear out some old inventory. So go check out DIY Mandala Stones on Etsy and see what she's got on sale there, because I know she's creating tools that have bigger numbers. So definitely check out her website, because I'm 99.9% sure that I saw that she has a sale going on right now to clear out some inventory. So check them out. They're my favorite tools. And they're not super, super expensive. They're certainly not on the inexpensive side. But if this is something that you think you're going to do a lot of and you're getting ideas and you want to just paint everything, then it's definitely worth investing in a set of tools like this. Lydia May at Dot Art Depot has sets of acrylic rod tools too that are definitely very inexpensive, and they work really well too. They don't go up quite as large. But that's another option for you for some dotting tools. She has a lot of great stencils and stuff on her website too. One of the other things that I'm going to be working on over the next little while is I got a set of her paint bottles. They're little squeeze bottles, kind of think henna, or and doing henna tattoos and stuff. That's the kind of bottles I have. So I am going to be working on some projects and some tutorials with how to use those too. But the DIY mandala stones are my number one go-to favorite. Take care, Rex. Love you. You're welcome, Catherine. You have a wonderful weekend too. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, they are my favorite tools to use. The DIY mandala stones are my favorite. So this is the nesting pattern, right? It'll look even cooler once it's dry and we get some more detail on here, but we'll keep working on this. We're going to work on this pattern again, the nesting, only we're going to work on stripes of color. So imagining that this whole line right here is all one color, and this whole line is all one color, and this whole line is all one color. We're going to play with some of that next week, and we are going to play with spirals. All of these different designs are all variations. I just put my hand in the paint. Ugh. All variations of the same design, right? All variations of the same design, and they can all look different. So there's so much you can do with this design, and this is all with the same color palette. Imagine changing all of the color palettes. It's crazy, all the different things that you can do. Okay? I hope that this helps you guys. I hope that you had fun with this today, and I'm already looking forward to next week. I think we're going to create some really cool designs. Totally good to be doing that on cardstock, on anything small, coaster size, canvas size, whatever you want to paint on, natural stone, any of that sort of stuff. We will keep going with this and play with some other patterns next week. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. I really, really enjoyed this tutorial. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. The Facebook group is Mandala Addicts by Mandala Love Affair. So if you want to post any of your projects, what you're working on, whether it's one from a tutorial or not, then that is the place to do it. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to let me know. I hope you guys had a really good time, and I hope that it was helpful. I'm so glad that it was helpful, Geraldine. Thank you guys for all of your time, and I will look forward to seeing you again soon. The tutorial will be up on the website in a couple of days to be ready to be emailed out, and it will be on Patreon by the end of day on Monday at the latest as well. So take care of yourselves, you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'm sending you lots of love. And I will be doing my next live Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on TikTok if you want to come and join me and hang out. Oh, you're welcome, Christy. You're welcome, Melinda. I'm so glad. Paula, Angela, you're welcome. You're welcome, Sharon. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I'm sending you guys lots of love. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.